Hi there, my name is Thea Strom and I am a medium and I am an animal communicator. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about how you can communicate a bit more effectively with your own animal companions, in particular about behavioral challenges. The biggest mistake I see people doing when it comes to their animals' behavioral challenges is that they take it personally when the animal does the behavior. When you take it personal and think that the animal is doing the behavior to annoy you, or that they know that you don't want them to do the behavior, but they're gonna still do it anyway, or whatever the beliefs, that they don't care. When you take it personally, you're letting your emotions muddle your connection and your communication with them. And it makes things really confusing to your animal companion, and it also, because you take it personally, that then begins to erode your relationship with your animal as well. And it can become this vicious cycle where your responses to their behavior makes them extra anxious, and then they do more of the unwanted behavior, or they find a different negative behavior to add to all their behaviors, and it gets worse and worse. So first, it's really helpful to remember that animals do a behavior for a few reasons, right? First of all, they might do a behavior because it meets a need or a desire in them, including instinctual needs. The second reason may be that they've been trained to do the behavior. Unfortunately, a lot of us humans tend to train our animals to do negative behaviors without realizing that we are encouraging them to do the behavior. And you might see this in the case of, let's say, a cat that meows for their dinner, and then you give them the dinner while they're meowing, and then now they know that their meows give them dinner. So, or in the case of, let's say, a dog that pulls on the leash or gets leash reactive, we might get really tense on our leash, and then that might encourage the tension in the dog, which then encourages them to pull even more, and so on. So we often tend to do a lot of behaviors that encourage whatever negative behavior they're doing too. And then the third reason is that possibly your animal's reacting to something that's triggering a deeper fear or anxiety in them, and then that behavior they're doing is the only way they know how to handle the fear or anxiety that they're feeling. So really, we could kind of sum up these reasons as the animal is really just trying to fulfill a certain need in them. A behavior is never done out of spite, and it's never personal. Even in the case of like a cat that maybe you've been gone on vacation for a couple of weeks and you come back and your cat poops on your clothes to show how displeased they were about you being gone, assuming that's why they're pooping on your clothes. Even in those cases, that is the only way that the cat knows how to express their unhappiness about you being away. It's not that they want to be a pain in the butt. So remembering that it's never personal is hugely important, so that you can then approach your communication with your animal on the best footing possible. You want to make sure that you're nurturing your bond with your animal, especially if you want to help them shift into a more positive, acceptable behavior. An animal with a strong bond is going to be much more responsive to you than an animal that doesn't have a very strong bond with their human. Alright, so how do you communicate as clearly as possible to your animal in this energetic sense? When you are talking to your animal, whether you're doing it out loud or in your mind, you are automatically sending them the energy of what you're intending to communicate to them. They're not necessarily understanding the words you're saying out loud, it's more they're getting the energy behind it. They will generally get the gist of whatever you're trying to say. Us humans also have a tendency to broadcast our thoughts throughout the day without meaning to. Energetically, we're just kind of sharing our thoughts in the ethers around us, and our animals tend to pick up on those thoughts around us, even if we never meant to tell them specifically that something's happening or that something is going to happen. Your animal probably already knows, most likely just from hearing your thoughts about it. This is just something that we naturally do a lot, and this is also why it's hard to keep secrets from your animals. So when you are placing your awareness on your animal and either talking out loud to them or thinking thoughts towards them, you are automatically sending them the energy of what you wish to communicate. Where it often gets confusing is when we are sending mixed messages. An example of this is if we are telling our dog, don't pull on the leash, we are sending him the energy and image of him pulling on the leash, and it gets very confusing. It's like telling somebody, don't think of an elephant, they're going to think of an elephant. So, to clarify what you wish to communicate, it's really important to make sure that you're focusing on the thing that you actually want your animal to do, which is walking calmly and relaxed next to you on your walk, keeping the leash really loose, and to clarify even more, not only can we say the words to our dog, but we might take a moment to visualize in our mind what it actually looks like when he is walking next to you, completely calm and relaxed together. And then maybe you can also bring to mind those feelings of joy and calm that you want to communicate along with that. When you are bringing to mind those feelings and when you are visualizing that image in your mind, you are also sending that and broadcasting that to your dog, and your dog is able to get a clearer sense of what you're actually wanting from him. So making sure to focus on the thing that you want him to do, and also using images in your mind and feelings as a way to clarify in addition to the words. How responsive your animal is always going to depend on why the animal is doing the behavior. What need are they trying to meet with it? If you can identify the need, that really helps you create solutions for acceptable behavior for your animal that you can then encourage them towards and then discourage them from that old negative behavior they were doing. So in the example of a cat, let's say, who jumps up on the counter all the time, we might figure out that the cat likes to go up there because the cat feels safer up high away from the other animals that are stuck on the floor. They're trying to meet that need of feeling safe up high, right? So what you might do is place a cat tree next to the counter that has some platforms up high for the cat to lay on and spend time on. And you can then encourage them to use the cat tree through your communication, through sharing with them how amazingly wonderful it would be if the cat did use the cat tree, and how that's the acceptable spot for a cat and the counter is only ever used for food or whatever else it is. And then maybe you would encourage them to use the cat tree by rewarding them every time they went on there, by giving them a treat or something like that. That way you are working with your animal companion to help them fulfill their needs in an acceptable way. Some animals do a behavior just because they think they're supposed to do it. Somewhere along the line, maybe they picked up on this idea that they should, let's say, bark at every person that walks by. And also a lot of behaviors are very instinctual, especially in certain animals. Some behaviors that us humans tend to not be a fan of are just a natural part of being a dog, let's say. And so some animals, it's just, for whatever reason, they just think that it's actually helpful that they do the behavior, even if it's not. So in those cases, really just explaining to them why that behavior is disruptive and what behavior you would love to see instead, and what the ideal situation is, that's going to help. Always, of course, focusing on what you actually would love for them to do, and how amazing it would be if they did kind of shift their behavior there. For some animals, they need a lot of training to help them shift, in addition to you getting really clear with your communication. Now, that might be in cases where the behavior is compulsive, or where the reward of doing the negative behavior outweighs listening to your suggestions, or if it's a habit that is so ingrained in them that they then need that extra push through training to shift their behavior. In a lot of cases, you're probably going to have to do a bit of a mix of things in order to help your animal shift their behavior. Doing a mix of both getting really clear on your own communication with them and also trying to troubleshoot a little bit around their needs. What are they trying to do with the behavior? What's the need they're trying to fulfill with it? And then also maybe hiring a trainer or looking online for some positive reinforcement techniques that you might do to help shift your animal's behavior. If you still see issues, you might consider hiring an animal communicator or, like I mentioned, a trainer who uses positive reinforcement, or an animal behaviorist, or maybe all three. But there's definitely hope, and you can certainly lean into this knowing that your animal's never doing it to spite you, and they're never doing it to be a pain in the butt. There's always a reason behind that. And if you can focus on problem solving and lean into creating a stronger bond between you and your animal, you're going to have a great start towards helping them shift their behavior.